So we continue on here with lesson 3.2, adding rational numbers, and our learning progressions of what we want you to come away with and master is to build on understanding of addition while using the operation of addition with integers. When you're adding integers with the same sign, the sum has the same sign. So if you look here, we have 3 plus 5 equals 8. So 3 is a positive, 5 is a positive, so 8 is a positive. Negative 3 plus a negative 8 equals negative 11. Both of these are negatives. 3 plus 8 equals 11, so you have a negative 11. So we learned that back in module 1.2, or lesson 1.2. Another objective is, while adding rational numbers with different signs, the sum has the sign of the rational number with the greater absolute value. So we're going to show you that in the video as we go on, but here's the example. Negative 4 plus 8 equals 4. And I'm going to show you the steps on how to do that, not here, but it's also the same steps you learned back in, I think it's lesson 1.2. 12 plus a negative 15 is going to equal negative 3. Because 15 is larger than 12, we're going to use that sign that's going to be negative. The sum, the last objective here, is the sum of a number and its additive inverse is 0. So if we take, as an example, negative 4 plus 4, it's always going to come up to be 0. Some signal words that you can look for to help you out, and I kind of put a table together here. If you write a check, take a withdraw, or take out, or spend, those are all going to be subtract or negatives. Okay? And if you see add to, gain, sell, or sold to, income, earn, or make a deposit, that's all going to be positives or additions that you're going to have. Continuing on here at lesson 3.2, adding rational numbers, is our standards that we're going to be continuing to work with here. Apply properties of operations as strategies to add and subtract rational numbers. We're also going to use 1a, 1b, and number sense number 3. How can you add rational numbers? You're building off of the work that you've already done in lesson 1.2. As you can see here, we have adding rational numbers with the same sign. So we have Malachi hikes for 2.5 miles and stops for lunch. Then he hikes for 1.5 more miles. How many miles did he hike altogether? So we want to, as always, highlight our important information. Okay, so we have 2.5 and 1.5 more miles, and how many miles did he hike altogether? So if you remember, I was talking in class about write what you see. I have 2.5 miles, and then he hikes for 1.5 more miles, so there's a key word. So we're going to write 2.5 plus 1.5. Okay, so we have a number line here, okay, and it shows us we're going to start at the 2.5, so that's approximately right there. And then we're going to go right, because addition means to go right, and we're going to go 1.5 units. Okay, so then here's a half a unit, and then we go one more unit, and that's going to put us to 4. So I have 2.5 here plus 1.5. 2.5 is where we start. We look at our next sign. So if I have an addition, that's addition means to move right on the number line. Subtraction means move left on the number line. Looking here, okay? Then the next thing I have to do is I have to look at my sign right in front of this. So if you don't see a sign, it means it's positive. If it was a sign, it would be negative. Okay, so that has something for us too. The sign. So if I have no, so that means since I'm going to be going right, I'm going to continue to keep going 1.5 units. If it's a negative sign, so I have a negative, go opposite of direction, or make the U-turn. So we can see here that we moved 1.5 units to the right because the second add-in is positive. The next example, we're using fractions. Okay, so we have Kylie pours out 3/4 liter of liquid from a beaker. Then he pours out another 1/2 liter of liquid. What is the overall change in the amount that we have? So highlighting, we're going to pour out, so that's going to be a negative. Then he pours out, again looking at keywords here, so that's another 1/2 liter. And then what's the overall change? So we're going to add those together. Pours out is a negative, pours out is a negative. Write what you see. So we're going to use negative numbers, -3/4 plus -1/2. If you remember back at the beginning of the video, if you have the signs of two numbers and you add them, then your answer is going to be a negative whatever. Okay, so the 3/4 is where we start at. If you notice here on the number line, they have it broke up into quarters. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters. So we start over 1, 2, 3 at 3/4, and then we're going to go a 1/2. So this is a 1/2 right here. It's just one big jump. If we follow our rules, this is where we start. This means to go right, but because we have a negative, this right here means we're going to go and make a U-turn. We're going to go the opposite direction. So that's why we head in this way. Tell you you're going to go left because the second add-in is negative. And then we end up being at 1/4. So the next piece here is adding rational numbers with different signs. So we have to go through, we have again example where during the day the temperature increased by 4.5 degrees. At night the temperature decreased by 7.5 degrees. So we go in and we highlight our information. We have an increase of 4.5, so that's going to be a positive, and a decrease by 7.5. And what's the overall change? Okay, we put a positive, and then this is going to be a negative. So we go ahead and we write 4.5 plus a -7.5. So this is where we start at. That means to go right, but because this is a negative, we're going to go back and go left 7.5 units. So we're here at 4.5. Okay, we just kind of estimate where we're at, and then we count back to 7 units, and that's 7 units is going to put us right here at the 2.5. And that gets us at, then the extra 1/2 is going to be at the 3, the -3. What you're going to do is you're going to take the absolute value of -7.5, and you're going to subtract the 4.5. You can take the absolute value of that also. So that becomes 7.5 minus 4.5. And if you go ahead and line it up and do it this way in the vertical, minus 4.5. 5 minus 5 is 0. Bring your decimal down. Notice I got everything lined up. 7 minus 4 is 3. So your answer is going to be 3. And if you remember from the video, you take the sign, larger absolute number. So it's going to be -3. This is a more efficient way of doing this than trying to use your number line. Okay, so we have the same thing here where we're going to highlight. He writes a check for $250. He deposits $6. What is the overall increase or decrease? Okay, so they write what they see. We have a negative check. A deposit here is a plus. So -2.5 plus 6. Of course, that's where you start at. And then you take the absolute value. But if we go back to what I was showing you, -2.5 plus 6. So we take the absolute value of 6 minus the absolute value of 2.5. So that becomes 6. Oops. So 6 minus 2.5. So if we put it in the vertical, I'm going to add a decimal here because I'm going to need that to subtract the 2.5. I haven't changed my number here, okay? So I borrow my 10, so that becomes a 5. Be neat. 10 minus 5 is 5. Keep that all in the line. 5 minus 2 is 3. Okay? So it's 3.5 is my answer. and I'm going to take the sign of the larger absolute value, so that's positive. I don't have to write it, so it's 3.5. So negative 2.5 plus 6 equals 3.5. So it's going to be $3.50 here. So getting into the last piece here, we have you got to do your reflect questions and your turns, and then we have additive inverse, which is the opposite of the number. That's the same distance from 0. So they give you an example here. A football team loses 3.5 yards. So we highlight that. That's going to be negative. On the next play, they gain 3.5 yards. What's the overall increase or decrease? So we go ahead and we write that. Loses is our negative. A gain is a positive. So negative 3.5 plus 3.5. And you start here, and then you go here, and we're at 0. So they have a property down here they want you to look at. Sum of a number and its opposite or additive inverse is 0. This can be written as p plus a negative p equals 0. So they're saying that p is the same number. So in the example above, 3.5 was a positive, so 3.5 is a negative, and that gives you 0. So you have your terms down here and your guided practice. Adding 3 or more rational numbers. Okay, so we're going to use the associative property to help us as we try to group the numbers here. Associative property of addition, so that we can group like numbers together. Tina spent $5.25 on craft supplies to make friendship bracelets. She made $6.75 and spent an additional $3.25 for supplies on Monday. On Tuesday, she sold an additional $4 worth of bracelets. What was Tina's overall profit or loss? So we have to write this out. So she spent money, okay, that's going to be a negative. She made $6.75, so that's going to be a positive. She spent an additional $3.25, so that's a negative. And on Tuesday, she sold an additional $4.50. So that means she made money there. So that's negative. She made, that's positive. Spent, that's a negative. And sold, that's money coming in. So if you look down here, they show you how they write that in an expression. Negative 525 plus 675 plus a negative 325 plus 450. Now we could have wrote this as minus $3.25, but by putting everything as an addition, they're showing you where they're going to be able to group. So they're going to take like terms. We have the negative 525 and the negative 325. So they're going to group those together right here. And then we have the 675 and the 450, and we group them together using the associative property. So negative 525 plus negative 325 is 850, and we use the sign. And then 675 plus 450 is 1125. And now we go ahead and we use our rules that we had just learned about take the absolute value of 11.25 absolute value minus the absolute value of negative 850, and that's going to come up to 1125 minus 850. We go through the math and we get $2.75, and we take the sign of the larger number. 1125 is positive, so that's why it's going to be she made $2.75. So you have your turn here, and then you go into the guided practice. So I really hope that helps you out, and have a good day.